Hey guys, how you going? Hope you're all doing very well. This afternoon I'm going to be doing another movie review for you all. This movie is an action comedy from Russia, Russian language English subs, released in the year 2005, directed by Alexei Balabanov, and this film is called Dead Man's Bluff. So Dead Man's Bluff is about two psychotic brothers who are hitmen for this local crime lord. Now, they don't really follow rules very well and directions because they have their own set of principles and what they want to do. They don't like working for this boss, but they have to. And so they are tasked with dealing with these drugs. Now these drugs go missing, they're furious, and so they're going to go on a journey of murder and torture in order to retrieve these drugs, but they're going to face a few problems in the process. And so what happens at that point on, something you're going to have to find out for yourself, because that's as far as I'm going with my synopsis. Now my thoughts on Dead Man's Bluff. Alexei Balabanov was a fascinating director. Unfortunately, he has since passed away, but his movies are very, very unique. So he has a lot of comedy to his films, but what he does, he creates a very strong level of dark comedy. Now this dark comedy is really disturbing and it actually makes you feel really bad for laughing. So Of Freaks and Men was a classic example of corruption of innocence, and the way that they corrupted these innocents was funny, but at the same time really, really dark and nasty. And so you also have films like Cargo 200, which is an incredibly disturbing film, but has a light-hearted approach to it. And so I got the feeling that, okay, this is a guy that is a sick individual, which I love, and he's laughing at things that are horrible, but he also feels that there's a strong purpose to that sense of darkness, and that darkness is a commentary on Russian society. And so that's why I love Alexei Balabanov, is because he was so good at actually giving you an insight into the culture of Russia, but at the same time have a film that you can actually enjoy in all the wrong ways. So Of Freaks and Men was fantastic. Cargo 200 was excellent. Now coming into Dead Man's Bluff, I wasn't quite sure what I was going to get. This is a Russian gangster film. As far as Alexei Balabanov is concerned, I didn't like Brother as much as a lot of other people did. So having another gangster film, this is much more of a light-hearted film than Brother was, but I was hoping that maybe it was going to be a little bit better. And after watching Dead Man's Bluff, I will say that this is classic Alexei Balabanov. If you're not prepared to laugh at really, really dark things, this is a film that is not for you. A lot of people are comparing this to Quentin Tarantino. I actually think it's darker than Quentin Tarantino. Quentin Tarantino, very stylized violence, whereas the violence in this film is very hard-hitting, and it is very Quentin Tarantino-like, but there is a much more of a dark heart to it. And there were moments where I was really disturbed by what was going on, but the characters and the way that they reacted to these absolutely horrible things actually made me chuckle. But at the same time, I was absolutely repulsed by what was going on. And so this director, he just invokes a lot of feelings that I don't get very often with films. And so you have on one side something funny, but on the other side something truly horrific, and it's very conflicting in the emotions, and it makes you feel very, very unique. And so that's what Alexei Balabanov will get from his viewer, a very unique experience, and Dead Man's Bluff is certainly that. I thought the two brothers, absolutely psychotic. Now, what they do, the torture techniques, there's a few Russian roulette scenes in this film that were incredibly disturbing, but again, made me chuckle because there was just the way it was shot, the way it was executed. I thought to myself, all right, well, why is that funny? And so why is the sick part of me actually coming out when I don't really want it to? And so, as I said, that is the unique experience. And so this movie is really dark. It's a really nasty film. But at the same time, it alleviates that nastiness through the really dark humour. So you have to be a specific kind of person to actually find this funny. But I thought the script was really good. It's a very racist film. It's very misogynistic. And so it's really putting its middle finger up at the PC crowd. And so I like these types of movies. Not enough of them have been made. But this movie also is a look in, again, Russian society. And so kind of like a disguise. On the outside you've got this gangster film that is kind of like a Quentin Tarantino, except a darker version, but on the inside you can sense that this is a commentary on, you know, the government of Russia and the corruption of Russia. And there's, at the end of this film, it really drove home that sense of corruption in Russia, and being so foreign to me, Russian society, this was a way to look inside. And so it's disguised really, really well. It's just so much more than just a silly Russian gangster film. It actually made me think about how things are in Russia. And so that's something I liked. A lot of these Russian directors are really, really good at this, and they're very brave. And Alexei Balabanov was very brave because he's taking things that are very taboo and he's making fun of it, but at the same time, that real dark humour, I feel as though it has a stronger purpose, a much more serious purpose. And I thought Dead Man's Bluff was definitely a showcase of that. So you have characters that come into the movie that are very larger than life. As I said, there are some moments that really made me laugh. and that the violence is really high impact, so be very, very careful. So I was kind of thinking, Quentin Tarantino, the violence in his films are very hard-hitting, but they're very over-stylized. So you get that sense that it's a caricature, whereas this movie, yes, the characters are larger than life, but the violence had a very strong nastiness to it. So it really levels it down to make it a funny film, but at the same time very serious. And so as I said, that's the conflicting emotion that I got from this movie. I have issues with this movie. I thought the soundtrack was overused. And that's the same problem I had with Brother. His other films seem to lack that sense of overusing the music. And I thought the music was really out of place. And there were other characters that were splashed into the film that I just didn't really feel as though that were needed. I love the psychotic brothers. I love the crime war they were working for. And I really like the circumstances with the people that they were actually after and torturing. But there are other characters I thought were thrown in there for basically no real reason other than cannon fodder. And I don't really feel as though it needed it. So pushing that aside, if you are a fan of Alexei Balabanov, Dead Man's Bluff is definitely for you. Again, the cinematography is very hard hitting. It's very low budget, which gives it that griminess. It gives it that realism. And so on the outside, you have a far-fetched comedy, but on the inside, I felt as though it was a disguise because it was actually having a look at Russian society and the corruption higher-ups in Russian government. So it's a very, very fascinating film that I would highly recommend. I'm going to give Dead Man's Bluff 4 stars. Alright guys, that's it for my review. Hope you enjoyed it. Till next time, keep watching movies, and I'll see you later. Bye.